So we are here with Ken and Lloyd from from the Urban Juke Joint with Greatness Magazine, and you guys are the featured venue for this month in October. So we have a few questions, but say hi to everybody first.
Hey.
Peace.
So Urban Juke Joint is a monthly event that happens on the last Friday, and you get a very large crowd. What inspired you guys to put on the Urban Juke Joint?
Myself.
All right. We thought that we could fill a hole, create a niche, something that wasn't happening with the poets, the juke joint is a spiritual mic.
All right.
It's not a Christian mic or Islamic mic or Buddhist mic, it's a spiritual mic. And we saw that poets were writing about everything under the sun, but there was no spiritual hookup to what was happening. And we feel that that is an imbalance in the poetry world, as well as the world at large.
Wow. That's baller. I didn't even know that. So how long has the Urban Juke Joint been in existence?
We started in August 2006, just with a handful of poets and co-workers and friends.
Nice.
But Brother Lloyd and I, wanted to make a name for it, so we ventured out to other parts of the city, to different mics, and started to have conversations with the poets and the artists, and get to know them not only as artists but as people, and shared our idea with them about what we were trying to do with Juke Joint, and it's grown, ever since, and we've been really fortunate to have the support of so many beautiful people.
Nice. So the Urban Juke Joint takes place at the Baha'i Center, which is a spiritual location, which totally makes sense for everything that you guys stand for. And something that's really unique is that you guys always start the night out with a prayer that is in the form of poetry. So what brought you to that conclusion?
Well, we say that the original poem is a prayer, and the original prayer is a poem. So it's just congruent. We just have to wake up to that understanding. And so poets are writing about everything under the sun, but they're not writing about certain portions of their lives. And the spiritual bring the insight to the poetry. So if it's not there, then the poetry is lacking.
It's also a way to kind of set the tone for the evening, so people know that, we're going to have fun, we're going to have a good time, but we're also going to understand, a certain part of our creativity, emanates from a spiritual place. And so by having that spiritual poem, prayer, starting the evening, people just kind of get an understanding that we're going to be doing this together, not only as artists, but also as spiritual beings.
Wow. So one of my favorite parts of Urban Juke Joint in the evening is the discussion. And it's very, very interesting because we have people coming from all walks of life, and we talk about some pretty heavy topics sometimes. And I'm just curious, how do you choose your topics? How do you come to each topic you're going to do for each month?
We look around. We live in a community, so stuff is in your face all the time. The question is which topic you're going to pick that month, really, because there's so much to pick from. We visit a lot of other poetry venues, and we see poets. Sometimes they're all saying the same thing, maybe saying it differently, but they're all pretty much saying the same thing. And we're a poor mic, so we can't really afford poets. And we can't pay them what they really worth.
Okay.
And so the idea was we will pick the poem, and that poem is inherent in that poet. So then we can pay them for the poem.
Right.
And the poem is the topic for the evening. Say, for instance, Lucretia.
Lucretia?
No, it wasn't Lucretia. She did the poem about the school.
Charlotte, yeah.
Michelle. She did the poem about teaching young folks in the public school system, and she realized she was a part of that system, but she's trying to raise these kids. So she was at a space between a rock and a hard place. So she was like, and the poem was about that. So we wanted to address that. So that gives you some idea how we pull into that.
Very cool.
Another part of that is that we want the poets to understand that, this work about change that we're all talking about, is proactive, and everyone has to feel like he or she is a part of that process. And so by going to the different mics and listening to what the poets are saying, and letting them really kind of determine, what we're going to talk about, gets them to be a part of the process. And rather than always someone, always doing the work and saying, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, let them actually be the ones that are actually proactive in the process.
Nice.
But what's on the poet's mind is what's on the community's mind, so it's on our minds as well.
Nice. So, you guys don't actually host your event. You actually have another young man, Chris Phoenix, I believe, did I get his name right, who hosts the event for you. What made you guys want to stay behind the scenes? Was that a conscious choice, or how did that come about?
I make a terrible host.
Ditto.
No, Chris. We just, we've known Chris for a while. Obviously, his father, is one of the drummers, that works with us, and we've just known him for a while. And we just think his personality lends itself to the evening. So, it allows us to, to be able to make contributions in other ways.
And also that quote unquote young man was languishing in his own life, and his father was like, what am I going to do with my son? And I said, well, we could use an MC, and your son seems to be really good in that area. Maybe he'll be a good fit for what we're trying to do.
Very cool. So where do you guys see Urban Juke Joint in 5 years? Pop quiz.
Maybe the question should be, what do you see it, next month? Yeah, really. Because we are a poor mic.
Yeah.
We're not really sure where we want to be. I see ourselves in 5 years, but we're constantly looking to, have the community moving forward in terms of the solutions. Another reason why we created the mic was that a lot of the times we found the poets were very good at illustrating the issues, but not necessarily having the insights on solutions. So we're hoping, down the road, we'll start to hear through these interactions with the discussions, just having personal, conversations, being more unified as a community, that some of the poetry will start to reflect, possible solutions, and hopefully they'll have a spiritual basis, because we believe that, the solutions to many issues are going to have a spiritual basis to it.
Hopefully, there'll be more ownership of Urban Juke Joint. For the most part, it's Kenneth and myself, but we envision more poets or anyone owning the mic, being more involved. We hope, to have ongoing workshops in which we do have folks understand the connection between the spiritual, the social, the political. We hope that poets eventually wake up to the understanding that they are leaders of the community, since they're talking about things. And also, poets have the ability to replace the defunct spiritual leadership in the community. So we hope that by then, way before then, the poets will wake up to some work that they're not really doing right now.
Indeed.
Just maybe one other thing I'd like to add is that, we will see a closing of the gap between the older poets and the youth poets. They somehow seem to still work out of their own circles. So we hope that there'll be a closer relationship between the two groups of poets.
Nice. So the event is a free event, and it happens every last Friday of the month. Where can the people find you?
It's free?
It's free 99. So where can the people find you to know, the dates of the next Urban Juke Joint and so forth?
We are available both on MySpace and on Facebook, and just look up Urban Juke Joint, and you'll be able to find us.
Excellent. Thank you guys very much.
Oh, thank you.
Say goodbye to everybody.
Thank
you.
Thank you.